Selena, I've got some very exciting news. And so we're breaking our season rotation to come and share this special news with our listeners.
Jordan, I love surprises. And I have a hunch. I think I know what this is about. Does it have anything to do with the United States?
Absolutely, it does.
What are we talking about? Tell me.
Well, to break the surprise and the silence, today we're talking to Steve and Tripp from Firehouse. Firehouse is an agency in Dallas, Texas, and they are a great group of people. And we've been talking to them for a while. We've worked on a project together in Rockwall, Texas, and I think we're going to be working on a lot more. And so we want to introduce them to our audience, talk all things Dallas and the United States.
This is a big deal. It's a big moment, and it's official.
Yeah. So that's why we're breaking the season rotation. Season 4 will start in September, but we couldn't wait. We're bringing this out to you now.
A special episode. ZGM X Firehouse, Canada, US expansion. Let's go.
Let's do it.
You're listening to Build Up, a ZGM podcast. I'm Selena.
And I'm Jordan. And we're here to shake up the world of home builder marketing.
Steve, Tripp, welcome to the show. We're so happy to be chatting with you here today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is awesome. Always love getting together with you guys and chatting with you.
Perfect. We wanted to start off, just give us kind of a quick Firehouse introduction so all of our listeners can get a good understanding of who and what Firehouse is.
Great. Well, we are a 27-year-old, is that correct? Right, Tripp? 27-year-old. Yeah, we're a 27-year-old agency based here in Dallas. We're a full-service agency, but we really focus on strategy and creative. We say our purpose is about creating thriving and dynamic relationships between great brands and their customers. And we do that a number of ways. One of which is really kind of the way that we think. We talk about this idea of courage in the face of convention, which I'll let Tripp elaborate on. But I think it speaks to the desire for the agency to always look for strategic white space and to really create creative work that gets attention. Tripp, you want to jump in?
Sure. This idea that every category, and we represent a number of different categories and industries, but every category starts to get into their routines and their rhythms in terms of how they represent themselves and what they talk about and what they think is important to consumers. And one of the things that we've noticed and both gotten really adept at is understanding, are those real or are those just comfortable habits? What are these unwritten rules that brands are following? And is it just because that's the way it's always been done? One of the things that we've got a lot of expertise in is taking a look at all of those conventions or unwritten rules in any given category and deciding, okay, which ones of these should we hang on to and which ones of these should we break in order to stand out and find that white space that Steve mentioned. If any of you have children out there in the world, you always know that the naughty kid gets the attention. So when we start breaking a few of these rules, then for consumers, it causes their eye to shift to the brands that we represent because we're doing something differently. I think the home builder space is a really, really interesting place to explore this type of positioning and this type of marketing, simply because I think so many of the builders and so many of the brands blend together and the way they go about their business and representing themselves. So we're really excited about the opportunity to partner with you guys and to really find a way to shake the snow globe a little bit and see if we can't do something really, really interesting for the brands that we work with.
Yeah, I love the way you put that, Tripp, and the idea of shaking the snow globe. Like in the intro to every podcast episode, we always say, we're here to change the world of home builder marketing and just change how we do things. And I think that there's such a great opportunity for the right builders out there to go to the next level and have a really great brand that stands out and speaks to something truly unique and different. So that's what we're all here for.
Absolutely.
Well, it is something I think we've done successfully in the multifamily space. I mean, which is where a lot of our experience has been. We won an Effie Award for the work we did for Syntex Destination Properties, and we've worked with firms like UDR, branding big developments like Vitruvian Park here in Dallas, the mixed-use community. So it's interesting to take that background and combine it with everything that you guys bring on the home building space, and just be able to dovetail those things and kind of have them feed off of each other.
There's so many good connections that the two of us bring to, really creating a partnership that brings home builders an unparalleled source of expertise and knowledge and ability. And that's why we're doing this, because I think we're super excited about the potential that we bring, the potential that the market has. There's lots that we're going to be able to do.
Super fun to work with.
Well, that too.
That's the best part.
Right.
Yeah. No, your category knowledge combined with, I think, our knowledge of the market. I mean, the fact is, for a lot of years, we've handled a whole lot of brands that look at Texas as sort of their backyard. So we're very well versed in the market. And, Dallas is not just one market. I mean, the Metroplex is a number of markets. It's a complex market, and I think sometimes people forget the scale of it and what it really takes to make a splash here.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us something cool that you're working on right now, or something that you just launched that was really cool and exciting.
Well, I would say one thing that's really, really interesting for us that I'm really excited about is one of our main clients is Lennox Residential in the HVAC space. We are about to embark on a new consumer campaign for them, which is, we're going to shoot stuff, I think, at the end of July, which is really, really interesting and exciting. And again, they're a brand that we've been able to migrate into this sort of challenger mindset of breaking out and doing something a little bit differently, and not just being so focused on the gray boxes that sit outside of people's homes, or we're talking about comfort just as a physical manifestation, but we're really talking with them about how do you own the air in your home or in a consumer's home? How do you talk about the importance of having air that is right for you individually and the impact that it has on your life? It impacts how you sleep. It impacts your allergies. It impacts your mood and how you feel, and whether you're itchy or dry or whatever. Being able to own that space is something that we're doing with Lennox right now, which is super, super interesting. And I can't wait to get this work kind of out into the world again.
I just got excited. Are you talking about
Mostly because you have allergies.
100%, because I'm struggling right now. But it's these categories that are so nobody thinks about them. It's just we're breathing. We need a home. Those kind of spaces are the most exciting spaces to me, because it's they're just wanting to be disrupted. And I loved your choice of words of shake, break. That's something we talk about all the time. It's we need to be disruptive and look at things with a different lens. And that's why I'm so excited to be working with your team.
Well, I think one of the things we've done well over years, right, is things that are grudge purchases or things that kind of live in the back of your mind, whether it's car batteries or collision repair, finding a way to create an emotional connection with those brands and to make them a little bit stickier than they have a right to be, because they tend to be brands that you don't think about very often. But we've had great success with those kinds of brands.
I think categories that have traditionally sold themselves on a functional basis or on a rational basis that have pretty much been devoid of emotion are areas that we have had a tremendous amount of success with. And as Steve said, whether it's HVAC and whether it's the battery industry, any of those are all things that, to Steve's point, you overlook, you only notice when it's going wrong. So how do you change that mindset? How do you get people to proactively think and care about what these brands bring to the table? I think in the home builder space, it's been sold rationally. It's been sold price, location, even down to school districts, things of that nature that are around the location. But what does it feel like when you walk into your new home? You can't talk to anybody that just buys a new home and says they didn't feel something when they walked through that door. So how do you capture that? How do you make that the essence of your brand moving forward? Because that's what starts to get people exciting, because emotions are sticky. Emotions create loyalty.
And probably one of the most emotional purchases and experiences of your life, yet a category that's often sold functionally.
100%. And I think that's our whole, like when Selena and I years ago were like, okay, we're going to take on home builder marketing. We can do this. We can do it better. That was the conversation. It was like, why is everybody just saying you can buy this house for X number of $100,000 in this community? Like, that's what? Like, this is a huge purchase. Like, this should be an involved, emotional, exciting, get me pumped kind of purchase. But no one's talking about that. They're all just sort of saying, yeah, we have that house over there for X number of 100,000. Like, what? Get me excited.
Yeah.
And it's such an immersive, engaged experience, whether whatever stage you enter home buying, and particularly if you build, that, I mean, you have the opportunity to create such tremendous loyalty, such tremendous word of mouth, because that is an experience people will share when it's done well.
Brand loyalty is like non-existent in the space, and for what we've done, especially, and it's untapped. And like we always talk about, I'm like, I have more brand loyalty towards like the fashion brands that I buy from than I do for like $100,000+ purchase. This is wild. We need to be focusing on that brand loyalty. So yes, exactly. We're definitely on the same wavelength for that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Things like bread, toothpaste, you probably have stronger. Yeah, you don't even go to fashion. I mean, the stuff you buy every week.
Dumb.
But yeah, there's more of an emotional connection and brand loyalty to a gum purchase than a home purchase.
But it can happen. It absolutely can happen. I mean, I'm sort of an example of that. I'm in my second home here in Dallas, and it's the same builder that my first purchase was from. That was a new home too. This is a new home. And some of it was a little serendipitous because the area overlapped with where we wanted to be. But when we found out that the builder that had built our previous home was here, we gravitated directly to that. There were several other builders in this neighborhood, and we really didn't give them much of a second look, simply because we knew what we were getting when we bought this home. And that provided so much comfort and so much peace of mind, because we knew they were good. We knew it was quality. We knew they wouldn't try and nickel and dime us, and that experience bore itself out.
I think that's such a huge miss for a lot of builders, because like buying a home actually isn't easy. Like you don't just sort of walk in, buy a home, and then you have it. Like it's not like buying a car where you then drive off the lot and you've got your car. Like it's a very involved, intricate process that is months in the making, both from the sale, then after sale, and then after sale care. All of these steps, being able to have that kind of experience, Tripp, and build that kind of relationship with your client is massively important, just for them to enjoy it. And then also, the word of mouth side of things and the referrals and brand loyalty.
Absolutely. And if somebody finds something that they value and that they really love and they feel like has done them right, boy, they will shout it from the rooftops, and they will share it on social media, and they will, everyone likes to be an expert and likes to sort of validate what they have done. And home building is no different. Home buying is no different. They want to justify their purchase and make themselves feel good, but they also want other people to get on board and join the club.
Totally.
Another word I love, club.
Breaking with clubs.
Breaking. Oh, that's awesome. I love the conversation and where it's going. And, I think we could all agree we have the same excitement and enthusiasm about kind of shaking things up with home builders. One of the biggest things that we're excited about, other than so fun working with you, is the knowledge your team is bringing and helping us and collaborating with us on your market specifically. And we've had already a wonderful experience and opportunity on a project working with your team, and there's so much value, and it was a fantastic collaborative process. One thing that I think would be really interesting for listeners to hear is, do you see any home building trends happening in Dallas or Texas that are coming up and we should keep an eye on?
There's certainly, I think, a movement in the larger metro areas towards a more modern design, but there is still very much a market in Texas for a very traditional build, even the larger footprint, right? So, I mean, you've kind of got a suburban market and you've got an urban market that I think moves a bit more with design trends. But there's perennially going to be a market for the 4,000 square foot traditional build Texas home in the suburbs. Tripp, what do you see? Anything different?
No, I think that's exactly right. And the larger communities tend to be a little bit more of the conservative type building, but usually when you're out in the suburbs, people have families and people are trying to maximize their space and maximize their comfort and feel like they've got something special. But to your point, Steve, the closer you get to an urban environment, you have much more kind of progressive, modern, sometimes almost avant-garde type design. But with a lot of builders these days, I think we're seeing them being open to both or offering some degree of both to their customers, particularly for whether it's custom or semi-custom type builds. They have that flexibility because the resources to find the supplies, to find the materials and all of that is a lot more ubiquitous now, it seems like, than it used to be.
And I do think when you do see more modern design in the suburbs, it creates high demand. Main, I think, as a builder, got a lot of attention moving to this market simply because they were doing different design and more suburban destinations. But when you start to see more modern builds outside of city center, I think they get a lot of attention.
Because they're unique. And I think there's a real opportunity for a brand to come in with that kind of mindset, because you have urban dwellers that move to the suburbs that don't want to sacrifice and don't want to live in something that looks like everyone else's. So if you can bring that aesthetic into the suburbs, boy, that'll be a really, really interesting brand play, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a huge white space opportunity in this market for that. Mm-hmm. Non-metro area, willing to work in the suburbs builder who's not committed to building the traditional Dallas suburb home.
Take a little bit of a risk, stand out. Yeah. It's a giant market, so there's lots of people looking for lots of variety.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of reloads to this market recently, which I think has changed the demand in terms of what people are looking for. So I think that creates more opportunity for that kind of a position.
Definitely. I'll throw something else and throw something out and either validate it or tear it apart. Everybody hears everything's bigger in Texas. I've heard, and I think that's kind of the motto with homes too. Like, give me a big lot, give me a big backyard, give me a big house. That's kind of what most people, especially in those suburban areas, are going for.
I'd say a modest lot and a big house.
A modest lot and a big house.
Agree. Yeah, it's very difficult to get a large lot these days. So oftentimes what you see is the home that occupies almost the entire lot. But big house, I think certainly suburban is still in demand.
Sure. Yeah. Certainly the 4,000 square foot plus. It's funny because when I moved to Texas, we thought, we'll have an acre lot and we'll have, because there's all kinds of room here. Not a chance. I think the biggest lot I've had is maybe a third of an acre. And that was, the house occupied the vast majority of it. So, but it is definitely a place where you have variety. You see everything from sort of zero lot line garden home type situations for people that don't want to maintain any of their surroundings to homes that are large enough to have a bit of a front yard and a bit of a backyard that is often turned into some sort of outdoor living space like we talked about earlier. So there's a lot of variety. There's a lot of flexibility. More than anything, people do like their space.
And like you said, Tripp, it's also that kind of moving towards that trend and idea of inside outside and that real flow between inside outside spaces.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Exciting. That's very cool.
We're working with a few clients on helping them increase their brand awareness. And like we were talking about, we don't want somebody to just be like, I need a house, I'm going to look for what's available. We want people to be like, I want to buy a house from this home builder and have that feeling of like, they get me. And I need to have this as like my home. We've been doing it a lot, of course, in Canada and Western Canada at ZGM. And now that we're excited to be doing some stuff in Dallas and area. But what's one tactic from a brand awareness perspective that is always a must? You feel like you must do this in this market to try to get some attention?
Ooh, that's a tough question.
Agreed. Well, I think the first thing I would say when it comes to brand awareness is you can't be shy. You certainly have to be willing to put yourself out there in a way that doesn't sound like everyone else. And there's a lot of that. And there's a lot of builders here and brands here that will occupy many of the same media spaces. And so finding a way to stand apart either through where you show up and how personal and warm you can be with your potential customer, or maybe showing up in the same places, but doing it with your own personality, with your own authenticity, and with your own position in the marketplace that's out there for all to see.
The market is so big and so diverse that the reality is, and that the home builder, certainly, you're targeting a segment, right? A certain geography, a certain income, all of those kinds of things. And I think that really drives how you reach those audiences. But the luxury market, print in this market is still a very viable medium. And in fact, I think it has real statement value to appear in certain kinds of print in this market. I mean, I think you've got to figure out who is your audience, and then you got to figure out, okay, based on that, how do I reach them? And I think for each audience, there maybe is a can't miss tactic. But I think just philosophically, we're always believers in you build from the bottom up. Start with your hardest working stuff first, and then kind of build up to whatever the appropriate awareness tactic is.
Knowing your target audience is absolutely key. Knowing what they like, knowing what they care about, knowing what drives them is absolutely critical to connecting with them.
I love what you're saying, and it's so true. And often, talk to some builders and they'll tell you, well, anybody who, like, our audience is anybody, like anybody who's going to buy a home, like that's just sort of the audience. And we really have to find that way to get that unique audience and that unique brand story and positioning of the home builder and meld those two things together. And that's where, the really interesting stuff happens, because you have to tell the story of what you do really well, and you have to find the people who appreciate that story and bring that all together. Like that's what it's about.
And that's a great point. The other piece of it is, what is the builder's vision for the community? What do you want it to be? At least I knew that when we worked with these other brands, that the people behind them, they had a vision of when they were done building out their community and they walked through this place that they had created, they had an idea of what they wanted to see and the joy that they wanted to see, or the, whatever it is. And I think it doesn't have to be an elaborate or emotional or overly sophisticated vision that they have, but it has to be more than, well, I just want to sell a bunch of homes. Because people just, I think human nature is that, well, I don't want to buy just another home in another place. I want to buy something that excites me, and I want to buy something that I feel safe in, and I want to buy something that, whatever the lifestyle is that you're trying to appeal to, you have to resonate with them. And to do that, you have to sort of paint the picture for them.
Absolutely. And I think a deep understanding of your positioning and in your purpose, like, why are you doing this? What's your vision? And what do you do better than anyone else? Like, we've helped home builders differentiate themselves on a more healthy home product because, they've got tighter insulation, better windows, stronger HVAC systems, more filters, low VOC paints and things like this. And we've done other things where it's just about the experience or about the design. Like, when you find these things, I feel like it makes the job so much easier, but it's taking the time to find those things and get them right. That's the hard part.
I think that's tremendous value in that, going upstream from the things you think of as marketing to really figure out what is the purpose behind a development and starting to infuse that thinking from the very beginning.
The other piece of advice that I would give to brands in the market is, don't dismiss some attributes that you have or that you bring forward as just, well, anybody can do that. Well, maybe that's true, but we find all the time that even in commoditized market, you can find the little kernel and vein of truth that sets you apart. It doesn't have to be something big and bold and grandiose. It just has to be different, and just has to be something that you can communicate in a way that resonates with your audience.
It's such a good point, Tripp. And I think it's then also, you could look at it and as a builder, you could be like, well, the other guy does that too. But it's about how you say it and how loud you say it. And that makes a big difference.
Something that I think is really interesting that everybody was talking about is that lifestyle feeling and like a development in the community and what it offers and how you're selling the community and lifestyle versus the actual home. Oftentimes we see situations where a builder isn't in control of the community development, and really some of that development and the storytelling isn't even there from the developer. And that's such a great point, is that even if you're not in control of the community, you need to be thinking about the lifestyle and the community and storytelling at that higher level, and not just talking about your product, even if the product is just in your control. But what is that bigger picture? And oftentimes that's home builders will be like, that's not my space. That's like the developer's responsibility. But you need to own the responsibility of, this is where your home buyer is going to live, and dig a little deeper and tell some bigger stories.
At the end of the day, that the things that you consider when buying a home are broad. I mean, it's a huge purchase. It's not just the amenities. It's not just the home itself. You consider the story you tell yourself about the life you're going to live there. So I think the builder's always got an opportunity to lean into facilitating, creating that story.
And the builder may not be able to control it and may not feel the right to talk about it, but their buyer is certainly thinking about it. And so if you craft your communications in a way that at least takes that into account and understands that, then I think you can be a whole lot smarter with what you're saying, and maybe take credit for some things that, somebody else wouldn't necessarily be bold enough to take some credit.
Exactly.
Yeah. And don't let the business get in the way of, your customer and their understanding. Because at the end of the day, they don't care. They don't know that the builder and the developer are two different things. They're just buying a house in a community, and tell that story, own whatever part of it you need to own to make it work.
Absolutely.
Steve, Tripp, thank you so much for that. It was a great conversation. I think we definitely could have gone on for another hour and a half.
Definitely.
Discussing all things builders and all things market related. But this was a great intro, and I'm looking forward to a very long relationship working with the two of you on some very exciting builder projects in the future.
Same here. We look forward to it as well, Jordan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a pleasure to get to not only talk to you, but work with you guys. And, hopefully we'll be bringing a couple of smart parties to the table to help out the building community here in the great state.
Awesome.
We can't wait. Thank you so much.
This has been Build Up, a ZGM podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and subscribe on your favorite listening app. Thanks to Shelby, our editor and producer, Scott for our original music, and you for listening along. Be sure to follow us on your favorite social platform at Build Up Podcast.